Hey guys, TechGeek here again with another video, and today I have the review of the LG G Vista 2. Now this is the successor to the original LG G Vista, which actually was a competitor for the Galaxy Note 5 from Samsung, but coming out of LG at a more affordable price. Now the thing here is that this is pretty much kind of like a Samsung Galaxy Note 3 repackaged into a different body. That's the best way I can describe this phone because it has a lot of the features that the Note 3 did, but it is at a budget price. And so without any further ado, let's actually get into the review of the phone, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Let's start out with the screen. This is a 5.7-inch screen, which is pretty big, and that puts it in the league of some of the really big phones out there, including the Nexus 6P and the Samsung Galaxy Note 5. But unlike those phones, it doesn't have a Quad HD display. It is actually a 1080p display, which means it has 386 pixels per inch, so it doesn't really look bad in any way. You can absolutely not see any of the pixels, but the color reproduction is only so-so. It's a little bit washed out. It doesn't look the greatest, and you can definitely tell a difference if you put it up against a phone like the Note 5, but in category of its own, and especially at the price that it comes at, it really isn't bad. The colors look alright. As I mentioned before, it is a little bit washed out, as you guys can see here. The colors on the video don't look absolutely perfect. There's been no color correction to this clip here, or to any of the clips in the video actually. But it doesn't get super bright. It's bright enough that it's alright. You can see it outside in daylight. But this, of course, is definitely not the best display out there. Another interesting thing about the display is that unlike a lot of the displays on the market today, it isn't actually really flanked by front-facing speakers. All you have on top is a earpiece, and that's about it. Now it does have a double tap to wake function, and you can also double tap to sleep the phone, which is nice. That's built into the software, unlike the BlackBerry Priv where you can only turn it on, and that's a phone that we're going to be looking at here on the channel in a couple days. But talking about the software, when you head into the About Phone section and the software information, what you're going to find is that unfortunately, even though this phone was released only last month, which was after the release of Android 6.0 Marshmallow, it still runs 5.1.1 Lollipop. And that's one of the major disadvantages of this phone, because while it has a 3000 milliamp hour battery, it doesn't have the doze feature that comes with Marshmallow, and so the battery life is often compromised, which is really not the best area of this phone. Now, as you guys can see here, I'm just demoing the Lollipop little Easter egg game in the back. But honestly, I would have really liked to see this with Android 6.0 Marshmallow. Now here's one of the key LG features. This actually I think came out a little while ago, and that is that LG puts the buttons on the back. I think this was first launched with the LG G3, but off the top of my head I can't remember. Now we have the power and volume buttons at the back, as well as the camera, and this takes a couple minutes to get used to, especially on a phone this big. I think it makes more sense on a smaller phone like the G4, but since they have included it as one of their design features, I can't really help but have to use it. Now at the top we have an IR blaster, and right next to that we actually have a stylus, very, very similar to the Note 5. But the thing about this stylus is that it is really just a stylus. It doesn't work super well. It's very thin. It doesn't feel the greatest in the hand. You can use it for things like moving around the display, and LG includes an app called Quick Note Plus, I think is what it's called. So it default opens up into a keyboard, but you can hit the little button and actually start drawing onto it, which is all right. It's not the most responsive thing in the world, and there's a little bit of latency, which isn't really that nice. And of course, this isn't actually pressure sensitive, which is really annoying, but I think the more that we think about the price of this phone, the more you can justify things like that. It's really just a stylus. I actually preferred using my aluminum stylus on this phone a little better, because the one that the LG comes with is ridiculously thin. It's not very easy to hold. Now, let's actually move on to another area of the phone which is actually slightly disappointing, and that is the camera. The camera quality on this phone is only so-so. I don't really like it very much. It has a 13 megapixel camera, an LED flash. It has no 4K recording. The phone records at a maximum of 1080p at 30 frames per second. But again, I always have to keep coming back to the fact that this phone is a cheaper phone as compared to some of the competitors in the market that you might be trying to put this up against. some of the things that I like about the camera interface is that we have manual shutter control, manual focus, ISO, white balance. But the thing is that the fact of the matter is that I've seen phones come out of Motorola that cost half of this price that actually perform a lot quicker. It takes a very long time to take a photograph, in which time you would most likely have missed whatever the thing was that you were trying to take a picture of, especially in the fast-paced world that we live in today. The front-facing camera is a standard 5-megapixel camera, and again, this is just a pretty bad camera. I don't really have very much good to say about it. Colors are pretty bad. You can see it has like a green overtone, but honestly, I wouldn't really do very much with that camera besides for maybe take a photo or two for Snapchat. Now, gaming performance on this phone is actually alright. The phone actually comes with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 617 processor, so this is actually a little bit old, and an Adreno 405 GPU. Now, this is a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core processor, and so even though we have 4 cores, it isn't the fastest thing in the world. You're not going to notice a ton of glitchiness, but you're going to notice a couple of dropped frames, which can get a little bit annoying when you're playing graphically intensive games, but Asphalt 8 over here seemed to be alright. I've been playing it a little bit, and this is really the game that I go to most often when testing phones, because it's a fairly graphically intensive game. It also makes use of a lot of colors, a lot of movement on screen. It's either this or Riptide GP, and both these games were able to pull off performance in a decent way. I wasn't expecting very much, and I wasn't disappointed. It skipped a couple frames. It's a little bit annoying when you have to use these things. But again, that is the theme of this phone. It is a cheap phone. Now, one area that I really don't enjoy the fact that LG compromised is the fact that the browsers actually don't really work super well. I've actually switched over to Chrome on this phone, but even then, web browsing is not the nicest of experiences on this phone. I have a pretty fast Wi-Fi connection at home. I use my computer with Ethernet, but Wi-Fi actually works just fine. I'm able to stream 4K off of Netflix if I want to. And while this phone has a dual window feature here, it doesn't really seem to work very well, but as I was saying before, actually browsing the internet is definitely compromised. There is some definite issues here. Now, I hope that this isn't just my model, and I doubt that it is, but unfortunately that is the case. Now, in the dual window feature, unfortunately, you can only use a couple of preset apps. I actually wanted to have Snapchat open and Google Chrome at the same time, but I was not able to select Snapchat, or rather Instagram. Now, browsing the web is, here's a problem. It's a little bit slow. And also, I'm going to put that stylus aside and just use my aluminum one. This is a lot nicer. Scrolling is alright. You can see as I move up and down, there's a couple of glitches here and there, and it skips a couple frames. It's not the smoothest experience in the world, and you can't really save those images, but that's just the website. Really, that's pretty much the theme of this phone. There's not very much I can do about it. One of the things that people might like, though, is the fact that the back is actually removable. There's a tiny little speaker at the back, and I don't even want to talk about this because it's just so bad. There's a slot right here that allows you to open up the back cover, which means it's definitely swappable as well. But one thing that people will like is the fact that the 3000 milliamp hour battery is replaceable. And besides for that, we also have a micro SD card slot. The phone actually comes with 16 gigabytes of storage, but it's expandable up to what I believe is a 128 gigabyte capacity. Now, the really nice thing about this phone is that it doesn't really, especially because of the size, you don't really see it falling out of your hand very much. It's easy to hold. But if you have a phone like an iPhone 6 and it isn't super easy to hold, I would recommend a skin. A skin like this one from D-Brand. This is a really, really precise skin that they hooked me up with, and I think that it looks really cool. It's a super precise fit, which I really like, and they come with 2 different styles in the box for the same price that you pay. I have a black back and a red top and bottom, and I think that this looks really great. It makes the phone a lot easier to hold, and the cutouts are super precise, including the one for the Apple logo. All you need is a hairdryer to be able to conform the sides, and it is a perfect finish. I think that it looks really great, and I would definitely recommend it for a multitude of different devices that D-Brand actually offers on their website. I would definitely go take a look. There should be a link in the description. Anyway, guys, that about settles it for this phone. It's a good phone for the price, but it's definitely not great. There's definitely better options out there that I would take a look at. But if you're in the market for an LG phone in particular, this is one that's definitely worth looking at. Anyway, guys, that about does it for this video. Before I hop out of here, I would like to give AT&T a big shout out for sponsoring this video. They were the one who provided the phone for review, and that was really nice of them. And that's where you can pick up this phone from. Again, there's a link in the description. Anyway, guys, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.